last section that I want to spend a little bit of time on is um, transformation. You played a exceedingly critical role, I'm assuming, for the enterprise globally, that of a chief people officer as well as chief of transformation. You've talked about the human-centered transformations often. Um, how does one, like, it's a uh, long, complex topic. How does one go about thinking about transformation? Taking an organization through these, and it seems to be that we are encountering transformation more often than we have encountered them in the past.
It is true we are encountering, and we probably will have more of that going forward because change and transformation is a reaction to the external. It's the organism's way of adapting to the external changes.
Mm,
Hmm.
mm,
And the fact that despite trying to change and transform, the fact that so many organizations don't exist and the lifespan is coming down shows that we've not been very successful in these transformations that we've been carrying out. Yeah. I first must say that this is an area where I do not consider my track record to be good.
mhm,
Hmm? It's an area that I think I would have liked to be much better.
mm,
It's an area where I wish I had met one of these inspiring people whom I met almost a few months before I stepped down. Yeah, I wish I'd met him in the early stages of my career. Hmm? But I want to make sure. So I'm going to say a few things in
Sure,
terms of what
sure.
my beliefs are, but I don't want to make it appear as if I have cracked the code and done these things well and right. Yeah. The truth is, most of them fail. So I've asked myself, why do they fail? And I came to probably 3 or 4 reasons why most transformations
Faith.
fail. And that has less to do with the obvious reasons for failure. What are the obvious reasons for failure? Um, Inadequate planning, poor governance, not enough resource. Now, if you fail because of that, that's just sloppy. No sympathy for
Mm,
that.
mm,
But companies which get that right still have a very poor record. There's some studies from Bain which showed 7 out of 10 succeed, some later on showed even only 12% achieve all their goals. So it's a very poor statistic. And I concluded, or my reflection suggests that there are 4 reasons. First is, I don't think we end up with a genuinely compelling change narrative,
mm,
contrary to what all of us believe, contrary to what I believed. Even towards the end, when I was leading the transformation agenda, I thought I had a super compelling narrative.
right.
And then I was exposed to an article written, there was a McKinsey article called The Inconvenient Truth of Change.
Mm-hmm,
And it blew my mind.
mm,
And he says, of course, we need a compelling narrative. Tick, everyone agrees. But it went on to say that it's very hard because what's compelling to the leader may not be compelling to many others. And then it goes on to say that there are at least 5 different sources of meaning
mm,
that employees derive.
mm,
And your narrative and your touches one of these 5, not the others. What were these 5? There are some people who are motivated by making a difference to the company or the shareholder.
mm-hmm,
There are those who are motivated by making a difference to the customers. There are those who are motivated by making a difference to society at large.
mm-hmm.
Hmm. There are those who motivate to my team. My team must become better. Or finally, it must make
It's
a difference to me.
yeah,
Yeah, there are 5.
yeah.
Now, that in itself is not as revealing as what the article then went on to say. It said that not only are they 5, they are roughly equally distributed in the population. Ah, roughly equal.
Wow. So
Which
almost in
means
around.
if you come up with one chain narrative, you probably touch bullseye with about 20%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
80%.
Probably peripherally with a few others, but you probably have not touched more than half the population. How will it work? So that was the first lesson. And I thought this article was what it was. I had a chance to test it out. We had a senior leadership event in Unilever, the top 200 people coming in when this transformation was going on. And I thought, let's try an experiment with this. What is your core driver? And we gave people choice between these five. You have to choose. What motivates you the most? Is it difference to society, difference to the customer, the company, shareholder, etc.? And asked people to put it on a piece of paper and hold it. These are senior 200 leaders of the company. And then ask them to go to different corners, places in the room which were marked. Approximately similar, slightly larger in the first bucket, but there were more than half, 60-70%, who had nothing to do with the customer and consumer in the other bear and the share company. So that was an eye-opener of sorts. And what it does mean is that this thing's obsession with this is the single message that we will drive down. And when anyone alters it a bit, no, consistency. You have to allow people to play around with it so that they can give it their own meaning. Otherwise, it doesn't touch them. So your compelling narrative is not as compelling as you think it to be. Then why would we be surprised if everyone's heart and mind is not behind it? So that was one reason, I believe. The second reason is I think we overestimate the necessity. Of course, by the way, a solid business case is absolutely necessary. Yeah. But a business case is not sufficient. A business case for change is necessary, but not sufficient. And no time is ever spent on what is other bit required, which is a people case for change.
Absolutely.
And we spend too much time overestimating the impact of that business case for change and underestimating the relevance and the necessity for the people case for change. And the truth is, most transformation do not touch people or actually adversely impact the people. Many of their jobs are being threatened. Many of their roles will get changed. Yeah. And we haven't found a way to articulate, understand, address this issue. Why would you expect wholehearted support from them? They'll at best be passive, may even be negative and detractors of this move. So that's the second reason why this doesn't work. The third is, I think, as leaders, I feel, we assume alignment. We talk about it, this is what we want to do, this is where we want to get to. Are we all okay? Are we all okay? We'll probably spend half an hour, 1 hour talking about it, and we'll get to a stage. But alignment with the outcome is not the same as alignment with the means. Is not the same with alignment with alignment on the beliefs and the philosophy underpinning this change. Do I want this outcome? Yeah, I want the outcome. But we haven't spent enough time trying to see whether we buy into the next level of our beliefs, our assumptions. Are we bought into this? And why is that important? Because during the course of this change program, you will hit a wall somewhere. Something will go wrong. Something will not be right. And that's when differences in approach, etc., when plan A doesn't work, because we haven't aligned on the other hand. Why don't we align? Because it's hard work. It takes time. And we are in a hurry. And we mistake speed with haste. We want speed, yeah, but we are hasty. Yeah, that's I think.
This is again a brilliant articulation with it. The first one that you were talking about, the 5 elements and the 20% or roughly 20%, if I were to pick that up, I'll come to the second point also in a minute. I somehow feel that it is almost linked to what you were talking about in the previous, the element of vision, that it must be collectively inspiring and individually relatable. Now, if I pick up the individually relatable to the constituencies that are slightly different in these 20%, it's actually more or less the same thing, that if I don't individually relate to the transformation that you are asking me to go through? How?
Yeah, how will I ever?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the question is, someone will say, all this sounds good. And I would say that. But how will you ever
Be able to,
find the way when 10,000 jobs are going to go, 5,000 jobs are going to go? How are you going to ever
yeah,
pick
find
them
it.
along,
Yeah.
find a way to do this, carry, and maybe you'll protect the other? There will be some ways, but it is hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll come back to this issue, which is where my dilemma in this meeting with
Individually, we're talking about.
the
Yeah.
individual I was talking about was an eye opener.
Mm.
But stay with this thought. And the fourth reason sometimes I feel is, the reason most of this doesn't work is it requires not just the structural change. Transformation is more than the boxes and lines in an organization. You also need the behavioral change to accompany it. And behavior change is hard. It is very hard. Not only with the best of intent, it is hard to get behavior change. And when organizations don't invest enough time and think only about the structural part and not enough about the softer aspects, then the likelihood is
It's
very, very low.
interesting that, Nitin, you say it because you've had a career in, like, if I go back to the second point for a minute, the case that you make that we think about the smart side of the business often during transformation, the what's the new revenue, what's the new offering, what's the new product, and margins or markets or customers, but not enough for the case of change for the human impact of it. And now you're talking about, like, the the behavioral aspect of transformation. You're growing up as almost always been in the sales and the hardcore business side of it, but now you sort of
But
when
if someone was to ask me how I was when I joined the company, it was exactly hard. I'm saying I was a classic engineer's mind. Hmm. Uh, Simple. I'm saying it has to come down to QED. And over a period of time, an appreciation of
yeah,
the other aspects, the human aspects, the softer aspects. And I recognize that my dominant side would still be the analytical,
yeah,
problem solving aspect. That's how I am.
but you've
But
worked on the other side.
working on the other side so that it doesn't become a fatal flaw.
Yeah, in fact, I was wanting to ask you, Nitin, right at the very beginning, that if you were to, like, look at, over these 4 decades, what's one thing that,
I think this would be one of them, and it required one coach in the early 2000s to ask me a question
uh-huh,
and push me. So he asked me a question. He says, I want you to go out and find someone who is very different from you. Yeah. Totally different skills and who's very successful.
Hmm.
Yeah. So in my mind is, how is it possible? So I come back 1 week later and say, didn't find.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, look harder. Hmm. And then I found two individuals, one within the company and one outside the company, whose skill sets were totally different from mine. Yeah. One of them was the polar opposite outside. The other one was not the polar opposite, but dialed up the softer, intuitive, human aspect and less about the numeric, analytical aspect which I had. Both exceptionally successful, especially the person outside the organization whom I knew. Remarkably successful. I would probably give that individual on my scale 2 or 3 on 10, but I would get 0 on 10 on his scale.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that opened my mind. I said, I can never be like him.
Hmm.
But can I add some aspect? I don't have to leave it at 0. Can I get it to 2, 3, 4, 5? So my strong suit can be here, but I can still work on it. And the reason it hasn't there is not that it's not there in you. You've just blocked it out. You simply believed and behaved as if it's unimportant. Hmm. That sometimes almost the software as a sign of weakness. Hmm.
Hmm.
That business leaders are cold and clinical.
Yeah.
So that's a very old fashioned. And that was. So you asked me what's the change? That would be one of the big changes over a period of time.
You were talking about one individual that
Yes,
sounds-
You see, and this happened again with another coach whom we had, and I was troubled, and I was kept asking this question: why is it that all of these transformations, so many people lose their jobs, etc., and a little bit of utopian thinking. I was saying, is there no way by which you can solve for and get these outcomes without having so many people losing their job for no fault of theirs?
Yeah.
Because often transformation and change and restructuring, etc., which you do, happens because not because a factory worker has made a mistake, because leadership has got something wrong. The leaders probably didn't make the right bets. They didn't move into the right markets. They made wrong decisions on capital. So it is often mistakes made for which, if anything, senior leadership is more culpable.
Mm.
But the people who get impacted very often are the people at the bottom.
Mm.
And when some senior people lose their job, they are more likely and easily able to find alternatives. But people out there find it more difficult. And this used to trouble me. And so I was talking to him and say, "Sure, I hope there is." And I'd read something 20 or 30 years ago in some HBR article that if something like that happened in Japan and they needed 10% cost out, and instead of getting 10% people out, all of them would say, we will take 10% less salary. The senior most person will take a bigger cut so that we will take collective pain, small collective pain, rather than subject a small set of people to
Especially the lower.
lower levels.
Yeah.
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 So this was some 30 years ago. I might have read something, and this thought came, and I was telling him, I wish anyone could do something like this.
Mm.
But immediately I said, this is too utopian. But he said, no, not really. I'd like you to talk to someone. So he says, who? So I said, a guy called Bob Chapman.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Chapman, he set me up, and he was incredibly generous with his time. He called me up, and I had a chat with him. Bob Chapman runs a company in the US, maybe 5 odd billion. So not too small, not too large. And has been doing that for several years. And he has been a passionate advocate of human-centric leadership and has written many books, including People Matter and things of that sort. And he told me great stories, but I've been around long enough to know it's very easy to tell good stories. I'm saying, what's the substance? I kept saying, when you do all of this, were you ever tested? Was this, how did you deal with did you ever have an existential challenge? How did you live this philosophy in that moment? He paused for me. Yes, I said, I did. I said, when? 2008, 2009. I said, what was it? He says, financial crisis happened. He says, we make packaging material.
Mm.
So we are suppliers to companies like Unilever and other consumer goods and things of that sort. So his board immediately told him that, you know what, Bob, you need to cut your cost. 18% cost has to be pulled out. Act now. American company, you could think today and decide and finish it tomorrow. That's how they could be. And Bob said, no, don't worry. We are okay. So what do you mean okay? He said, I've got a great order book. Nothing to worry about. We will be fine. So he resisted it. And the board was worried. Told him again. Resisted it. Till once, I think he was somewhere in Europe. He was traveling there. And he suddenly gets a message from his team that the largest customer who had placed an order on him, on whose back of which he was feeling very comfortable, had cancelled the order because they were feeling their business was in trouble. And suddenly, Bob, who was sitting very pretty, now was struggling. He didn't have an order book. He had no choice but to cut 10% cost. And he simply didn't know how. Goes to the board. Board says, 3 months ago, I've been telling you, you've been resisting it. So he doesn't know what to do. And then he comes up with an idea. He could ask 10% to go, and he says, my last 10 years of everything that I've done will be destroyed with that one action. So he doesn't want to do it. So he talks to his team, and they come up with an idea. What if all of us take 4 weeks of unpaid leave? You take 4 weeks of unpaid leave, about 8% of your cost.
Yeah. 8.33% is gone.
Right.
Yeah.
That's gone. Now, why would people agree? He explained to people, this is where we are. We have a choice.
Right.
Or you could do this.
Right. Right.
people bought that logic and took that leave. He still needed 1 or 2% more, and he did a few other things which were voluntary, etc. And he got to that outcome that he needed. But something happened. But by the way, a little aside, some really unbelievable things happened. While everyone was required to take 4 weeks of leave, there were some people in the factory for whom 4 weeks of leave would have meant a challenge. They had a sickness
Say,
at home. They
let's
were
say
thinking
a
that
continued income reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
their income reason.
Yeah.
But no one asked. The supervisor or the factory manager says, if I take 3 more days of leave, my 3 days is equal to your 20 days or your 25 days. You don't need to take leave. So bartering started to help each other.
Right.
Yeah.
And all of this is happening on its own.
On its own.
Yeah.
So this guy, everyone was taking 4 weeks. He discovered later that in a factory, there's a worker who's deeply troubled. And he goes and complains to his, I don't know what to do. And somebody says, and then some senior says, okay, I'll take 4 days more of leave.
Mm.
It solves your problem.
Mm.
Yeah, things of that sort started happening. So it was fantastic. He was feeling very proud, but he was also troubled. He says, I've solved this situation. But this is not the last crisis that we are going to have. I can't keep going back to people and saying to them every time there's a problem, take 4 weeks of unpaid leave. This is the one time I've done it. I can't do it again.
Yeah, you actually can't repeat me.
I can't repeat it.
Yeah.
So how do we, and what this was true caring, and then he took the true caring, and then that's what I understood based on what he did, what true caring really means. True caring is not just soft, but looking at people. The team got together and then said, we can't let this situation happen again. So how do you never let this situation happen again? External shocks are not up to you.
Yeah.
So they came up with a brilliant idea, which was called the Business Excellence Staffing Model. And what is the Business Excellence Staffing Model? The way he described to me, he says, starting now, there is no manpower budget. So when there is no manpower budget, when somebody resigns, what happens in most organizations, there's a budget approved, somebody resigns, you backfill.
Yeah.
You bring someone in. There is no budget. So in a team of 10 people, if somebody resigned, what did the team do? They come together and say, what can we do as the balance 9 people to simplify, eliminate, automate, so that we don't have to bring a person in.
Amazing. Yeah. And he's practicing all of this.
Yeah. Now, why did people do this? Why did people voluntarily, team after team, follow this business excellence staffing model? Because they saw that the spirit behind this was true care. He didn't want a situation where you would ever need to fire someone. Yeah. Now, when you are doing that, I'm willing to chip in and find solutions for that, because it is in my self-interest as well.
Yeah. I find that. Yeah.
So when that happened, I came to the conclusion that very often organizations have a very unidimensional understanding of what care means. Care is not only soft. Care is not only helping someone when you have a medical. Care also means having the wisdom and the discipline to put in processes and systems which will allow me to live the promise of care. Yeah. If you don't put it,
that once.
You see, I can keep saying I will look after you. But if I don't put in the mechanisms which will allow me to honor that promise, I'm not caring.
Yeah.
So I have to put those in.
Yeah.
That's true care. So if that means I have to put these in and help people to understand it, it is important. Otherwise, it is not caring. It is caring till the next crisis.
Absolutely.
And then it's all over. I'm sorry, I put my hands up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then when I heard all of this, I said, I have to come and see this. So I chose to visit him because you can, like I said, and the place felt different. And people experience this. And here is a company, again I said, none of this is an excuse for delivering mediocre performance. Here's a company which has been delivering double-digit earnings growth for 20 years.
Wow.
So,
going back to your original point of love and respect.
So this is not an excuse. In fact, this is a means to deliver that outcome. So the way he thinks of it is because we have a business excellence staffing model, It allows me to be the leanest company that is around, lowest cost structure. Because every employee in the organization is committed emotionally to reduce that so that we never get to the situation. When you do that, you are the most competitive in the market.
Yeah.
If you're more competitive, orders will come, growth will happen.
Yeah, I can imagine its impact on cost structure. Like you would be.
So you get what I'm saying. So now, when I saw this, I came to the conclusion I may have missed it in my lifetime practicing this. Yeah. But someone is doing it. Someone is doing it.
Absolutely.
Now we can keep saying, but it is not as big a company. It's 5 billion and not 50 billion, and it is this and not that. All of that is excuses. Someone's shown a model. And
Yeah.
I wish we could find ways by which we could drive the change, have that people case. That business excellence staffing model worked because there was a people case for change.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would not have worked.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that, like I said, I would have liked it if I'd met him 20 years ago.
Yeah. So this almost sums up, Nitin, what I think has been really a phenomenal dialogue. Like the areas that we have been able to cover, starting from, what made HUL more than a company, going through your journey, the human experiments that you talked about, the chance meeting with your
Professor Prahlad.
Professor Prahlad, that whole combination ecosystem that the three ingredients that needs to exist, culture, transformation, it's just been phenomenal. Couldn't thank you more. This has been really amazing. Thank you very much, Nitin, for your time and sharing your wisdom. Deeply, deeply grateful for your.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much. Yeah.